Today, I want to talk about a topic that affects each one of us every single day, often without us even realizing it, our feelings. Feelings are powerful. They shape our decisions, influence our relationships, and even determine the quality of our lives. Yet, while they are an essential part of our human experience, there's a truth we all need to recognize: we must learn to control our feelings rather than let them control expend awareness of emotions. Awareness of emotions is foundational to understanding ourselves and navigating the complex landscape of human interactions. Emotions are a powerful force that affects nearly every decision we make. Yet, for all their influence, our emotions are often automatic and unconscious, rising up in reaction to events without us taking the time to notice or understand them. Emotional awareness, then, is about taking control of these reactions by identifying and acknowledging our feelings as they arise. This conscious awareness can transform our relationships, decisions, and personal growth, making it an essential skill for a balanced and fulfilling life. When we talk about being aware of our emotions, we're referring to more than just knowing that we feel happy or sad. True awareness means observing these feelings without judgment, recognizing the subtle shifts in our mood, and naming the full range of emotions we experience. It means taking a mental step back to evaluate not only what we feel, but also why we feel it. In doing so, we can prevent our emotions from controlling us, instead choosing to respond to situations with intention and clarity. Consider the typical day-to-day interactions that evoke emotions: a stressful email from a boss, a kind message from a friend, or a frustrating encounter in traffic. In each scenario, our feelings arise almost instantaneously, often without our consent. We may feel a surge of anger, a pang of guilt, or a spark of joy before we even fully process what has happened. For many, this immediate reaction feels like a natural response, but without awareness, it's easy to let these emotions dictate our actions without consideration. Imagine, for instance, receiving unexpected criticism. The initial reaction might be defensiveness or anger. Without pausing to recognize this reaction, we might respond hastily with resentment or hostility, potentially damaging relationships or reputations. But with emotional awareness, we can identify that defensiveness, take a moment to breathe, and instead respond in a way that's more constructive. Building emotional awareness begins with mindfulness and intentional focus on the present moment. Mindfulness encourages us to check in with ourselves, noticing how we feel physically and emotionally. By engaging in mindfulness practices such as deep breathing or mental check-ins, we can create the habit of acknowledging our emotions as they occur. When practiced consistently, mindfulness enables us to recognize the subtle shifts in our mood before they escalate into something uncontrollable. Even setting aside a few minutes each day to focus on our emotional state can make a big difference. Over time, this habit can lead to improved emotional regulation and a greater sense of inner peace. One powerful technique to improve emotional awareness is emotional labeling. This practice involves identifying and naming our emotions. Instead of vaguely feeling bad or good, we pinpoint specific emotions: frustration, anxiety, excitement, or contentment. Studies have shown that simply labeling our emotions can reduce their intensity. When we name what we feel, we engage the rational part of our brain, which helps us to process emotions more calmly. Imagine being in a situation that makes you angry. By simply identifying the emotion and saying, "I am angry," you're able to distance yourself from that feeling just enough to gain control. Instead of acting on impulse, this awareness allows you to respond thoughtfully and choose a course of action that reflects your true values. Understanding our emotions goes beyond labeling them, however. It's equally essential to explore the reasons behind what we feel. Every emotion has a trigger, and often our immediate reaction may be rooted in something deeper. For instance, if you feel irritated by a friend's comment, it might not be the comment itself that's the issue. Perhaps it reminded you of a past experience or insecurity. By examining why certain emotions arise, we can address the root causes, rather than simply managing the surface reaction. This understanding empowers us to work through unresolved issues and to grow emotionally. Awareness of emotions also plays a critical role in our relationships. When we're attuned to our emotions, we're better equipped to empathize with others. Emotional awareness fosters self-compassion and patience, both of which are essential for healthy interactions. If we recognize when we feel hurt, defensive, or insecure, we can communicate more openly and honestly. Instead of lashing out or withdrawing, we're able to express our needs and concerns in ways that build understanding rather than creating conflict. Relationships that prioritize emotional awareness tend to be more resilient because both parties understand their own needs and are better able to support each other. Yet emotional awareness is not without its challenges. The process of acknowledging and understanding our emotions can be uncomfortable. Sometimes we may prefer to ignore or suppress certain feelings, especially those that are painful or difficult to confront. However, Suppressing emotions can lead to increased stress and, over time, impact our mental and physical health. Repressed emotions can resurface in unexpected ways, affecting our behavior and interactions without us even realizing it. The discomfort of emotional awareness is worth it because the process allows us to lead a more authentic and empowered life. In the long run, developing emotional awareness fosters resilience. When we can observe our emotions with clarity and compassion, we're less likely to be overwhelmed by them. Instead, we learn to view emotions as information signals that can guide us to make better decisions. When life presents us with inevitable challenges, emotional awareness provides a stable foundation. We're less reactive, more adaptable, and able to approach problems with a clear mind. This resilience enables us to face difficult situations without becoming trapped in negative emotions, and it strengthens our ability to bounce back from setbacks. In conclusion, awareness of emotions is a transformative practice that allows us to live more consciously, compassionately, and constructively. It's about recognizing that our feelings are an essential part of who we are, while also understanding that we have the power to manage them. By building this awareness, we can respond to life's challenges with clarity, improve our relationships, and find greater peace within ourselves. Cultivating emotional awareness is not just about controlling our emotions, but also about understanding them, and in doing so, creating a life that's truly aligned with our values and aspirations. Understanding the source of our emotions is a fundamental step in managing our responses to life's events and interactions. Emotions are complex, often multi-layered reactions that can be triggered by immediate experiences or by deeper, less obvious factors such as past experiences, values, and even unfulfilled expectations. By taking the time to investigate why we feel a certain way, we unlock the ability to respond more thoughtfully and intentionally, creating opportunities for personal growth and healthier relationships. This practice of identifying the roots of our emotions gives us insight into our inner workings, and it can profoundly influence how we perceive, interact with, and navigate the world around us. In everyday life, emotions emerge in response to specific events or interactions. For example, you might feel disappointed if you receive constructive criticism on a project you worked hard on, or you might feel anger when someone cuts you off in traffic. These are natural responses, and it's easy to assume that the situation itself is the sole cause of the emotion. However, more often than not, our emotions have roots that go beyond the immediate experience. The disappointment we feel from criticism, for instance, could be tied to a deeper need for validation or a fear of failure, which may stem from past experiences of being overly judged or criticized. Similarly, that moment of anger in traffic might be less about the other driver's action and more about our accumulated stress or an underlying sense of vulnerability. Taking time to understand the source of our emotions involves examining not just the surface, but also these underlying drivers. In doing so, we gain a clearer view of our internal landscape and can more effectively address our needs and concerns. This awareness empowers us to react with more control, since we're no longer solely focused on the external trigger, but also aware of the internal context. For instance, recognizing that criticism triggers a fear of inadequacy allows us to address that fear separately rather than letting it dictate our response to every feedback we receive. Self-reflection is a crucial tool in this process. By engaging in self-reflection, we can develop a greater sense of why certain situations affect us more than others. For instance, if we find ourselves consistently anxious in social situations, reflecting on past experiences might reveal that we've previously felt judged or rejected, leading to a subconscious association between social settings and discomfort. This insight allows us to confront and work through our anxieties, potentially reshaping our responses and improving our emotional well-being over time. Self-reflection also gives us the chance to connect patterns across different areas of our lives, revealing how certain emotions might stem from broader themes, such as the need for acceptance or control. Understanding the source of our emotions can also prevent overreaction, which is often the result of our underlying triggers. When we're unaware of the root causes, emotions tend to accumulate and then explode over seemingly minor issues. Think of emotions like water building up behind a dam. If there's no outlet, even a small disturbance can cause a flood. By regularly exploring our emotional sources, we can release these pent-up emotions more gradually, reducing the likelihood of them spilling over and affecting our behavior negatively. A well-rounded understanding of our emotions helps us identify when a reaction is disproportionate to a situation, allowing us to regain control and respond in a way that aligns with our values and goals. Another benefit of exploring emotional roots is the opportunity it creates for personal growth. Every emotion, no matter how uncomfortable, carries valuable information. For example, jealousy might signal an unmet need for self-worth, while frustration may reveal areas where we feel a lack of control. When we look beneath the surface, we can transform emotions from obstacles into stepping stones for development. Acknowledging jealousy or frustration isn't about indulging in those feelings, but about understanding what they tell us about ourselves. This process of self-discovery can guide us toward actions that address our unmet needs and ultimately bring us closer to our authentic selves. In relationships, understanding the source of our emotions can improve our interactions with others. Often, misunderstandings and conflicts arise because we react based on hidden insecurities or unresolved issues. If we can recognize that our frustration with a loved one's behavior stems from past experiences or unmet needs, we are more likely to approach the situation with empathy and communicate more effectively. Instead of accusing or blaming, we can express ourselves openly, helping the other person understand our perspective without causing unnecessary tension. In this way, understanding our emotional roots allows us to break negative cycles in relationships, building trust and resilience. Developing the ability to analyze the source of our emotions also promotes emotional resilience. Life is filled with challenges, and emotional resilience is essential for maintaining mental well-being. By understanding why certain events affect us more deeply than others, we're better prepared to face setbacks and adapt to changes. For instance, if a career setback triggers feelings of inadequacy, exploring this reaction might reveal an underlying belief that success is tied to self-worth. This awareness enables us to redefine our personal sense of value, building a healthier mindset that's less dependent on external validation. Emotional resilience allows us to move forward with confidence, knowing that we're equipped to handle the ups and downs of life. One of the most effective ways to understand the source of our emotions is through journaling. Writing about our feelings helps us clarify them, and when we put our thoughts on paper, we can often see patterns that were hidden from us in the moment. Journaling allows us to document specific triggers, identify recurring themes, and see how our reactions evolve over time. This practice helps us build a stronger connection with ourselves and makes it easier to recognize the internal dynamics that shape our emotional responses. In conclusion, understanding the source of our emotions is a vital skill that leads to greater self-awareness, healthier relationships, and a stronger sense of resilience. Emotions are complex, and they often carry messages about our needs, values, and experiences. By taking the time to explore why we feel a certain way, we gain valuable insights into our inner selves and can respond to life's challenges with clarity and purpose. This process empowers us to break free from reactive patterns and create a life that's more aligned with our true aspirations. Ultimately, the journey of understanding our emotional roots is a journey toward greater self-acceptance and emotional freedom, allowing us to live with intention, empathy, and strength. Practice emotional labeling is a simple yet transformative technique that can significantly improve our ability to manage and understand our emotions. Emotions are an integral part of the human experience, often arising spontaneously and influencing our thoughts, behaviors, and relationships. But when we don't fully understand our emotions, we risk letting them control us, leading to impulsive actions and potential misunderstandings. Emotional labeling, which involves identifying and naming our emotions, allows us to pause, reflect, and ultimately take control of how we respond. This practice can be especially helpful in building emotional awareness, improving mental health, and enhancing communication. At its core, emotional labeling is about consciously recognizing the specific emotion we are experiencing in a given moment. Rather than vaguely thinking, I feel bad or I feel good, emotional labeling encourages us to pinpoint the precise emotion, such as I feel anxious, I feel disappointed, or I feel excited. This process of identifying our feelings in detail allows us to engage with them on a deeper level. When we name our emotions, we bring the emotional part of our brain, the amygdala, into dialogue with the more rational, logical part of our brain, the prefrontal cortex. This helps reduce the intensity of the emotion, making it more manageable and allowing us to respond thoughtfully rather than react impulsively. One of the primary benefits of emotional labeling is the way it builds self-awareness. By frequently practicing this skill, we develop a habit of checking in with ourselves and understanding our emotional state. For instance, if we feel irritated, labeling it as frustration or impatience forces us to acknowledge the specific feeling rather than allowing it to simmer beneath the surface. Over time, this habit of naming our emotions strengthens our ability to observe our internal state without immediately acting on it. This increased self-awareness leads to a better understanding of our emotional patterns, making it easier to identify triggers and recurring themes in our emotional responses. This awareness is essential in helping us make intentional choices about how we respond in various situations. Emotional labeling also has a calming effect. Studies in neuroscience have shown that labeling emotions can reduce their intensity. When we name an emotion, we activate the prefrontal cortex, the area of the brain responsible for reasoning and decision-making, which helps to regulate the amygdala, the part of the brain associated with emotional reactions. Imagine feeling a surge of anger after someone cuts you off in traffic. Instead of letting the anger escalate, you can pause and label the feeling, I am angry because I feel disrespected. This simple act of acknowledgement shifts your focus from the immediate emotional response to a more mindful awareness, allowing you to calm down faster and avoid an impulsive reaction. This ability to self-regulate by naming our emotions is incredibly useful in stressful situations, helping us to maintain composure and clarity. Another advantage of practicing emotional labeling is that it gives us a vocabulary to express our emotions accurately. Many people find it challenging to communicate their emotions effectively because they lack the specific language to describe what they are feeling. The more we practice labeling emotions, the more familiar we become with a range of emotional terms, such as disappointed, overwhelmed, content, nostalgic, or optimistic. By expanding our emotional vocabulary, we become better equipped to express ourselves in ways that others can understand. For example, instead of vaguely saying, I feel bad, we might articulate, I feel anxious about the upcoming deadline because I want to meet expectations. This clarity fosters better communication and reduces the likelihood of misunderstandings in personal and professional relationships. Practicing emotional labeling also encourages self-compassion. When we take a moment to label our emotions, we are engaging in a form of self-validation. We are essentially saying it's okay to feel this way and giving ourselves permission to acknowledge our emotional experience. This validation is a powerful tool for reducing self-criticism and accepting our emotions without judgment. For example, if we feel sad, labeling it as sadness instead of trying to suppress or ignore it helps us recognize that sadness is a natural response to certain situations. This approach fosters self-compassion by allowing us to sit with our emotions without feeling guilty or ashamed. By practicing self-compassion, we build a healthier relationship with ourselves, enhancing our overall emotional resilience. Emotional labeling is also incredibly helpful in managing complex emotions. Life often brings situations where we feel multiple emotions simultaneously. For example, we might feel both excitement and fear about a new job opportunity, or both happiness and sadness when moving to a new city. By labeling each emotion individually, we can make sense of our experience and avoid feeling overwhelmed. Identifying these mixed emotions allows us to address each one separately, helping us to clarify our thoughts and make more informed decisions. Recognizing the complexity of our emotions also reminds us that it's okay to have mixed feelings, which is a natural part of the human experience. In relationships, practicing emotional labeling can lead to greater empathy and understanding. When we are in touch with our own emotions, we become better at recognizing and understanding the emotions of others. For instance, if a friend is acting distant, emotional labeling allows us to consider that they might be feeling overwhelmed or hurt, rather than assuming they are simply uninterested. This empathy can improve our interactions and create stronger, more supportive connections with others. Additionally, sharing our emotions with loved ones through labeling encourages open communication and fosters a safe space for mutual emotional expression. This can deepen bonds and create more meaningful relationships. One effective way to incorporate emotional labeling into daily life is through journaling. Writing about our day and identifying specific emotions we experience can help us track our emotional patterns and become more aware of how different situations affect us. For instance, noting that a particular meeting made us feel anxious or valued allows us to reflect on our emotional responses in a non-judgmental way. Over time, this practice provides valuable insights that make it easier to recognize and label emotions in real time, empowering us to navigate our feelings with greater ease. In conclusion, emotional labeling is a valuable practice that enhances self-awareness, reduces emotional intensity, expands emotional vocabulary, and fosters empathy and self-compassion. By consciously identifying and naming our emotions, we gain the ability to manage them effectively, allowing us to respond rather than react. This practice not only improves our mental well-being, but also enriches our relationships, communication skills, and overall quality of life. Through emotional labeling, we learn to understand and respect our emotional experience, leading to a life that is more intentional, balanced, and connected. As we continue to practice this skill, we not only grow in our ability to handle difficult emotions, but also deepen our understanding of ourselves and others, laying the foundation for a more fulfilling and emotionally resilient life. The practice of pausing and reflecting is a powerful tool when it comes to managing our emotions, and it is closely tied to the skill of emotional labeling. In the fast-paced world we live in, it's easy to get caught up in the rush of events and emotions, reacting instantly to whatever comes our way. Pausing and reflecting, however, allows us to step back, take a deep breath, and examine what we are feeling before we act. This momentary pause is deceptively simple but incredibly transformative. It's a brief window that can change the course of our reactions and decisions. When combined with emotional labeling, it enables us to handle our emotions in a way that is calm, thoughtful, and intentional. The idea of pausing before reacting has its roots in mindfulness, a practice that emphasizes staying present and observing our thoughts and emotions without judgment. Emotions often arise rapidly and can lead to actions we might later regret, like lashing out in anger or withdrawing when we feel hurt. By taking just a few moments to pause, we give ourselves the opportunity to gather our thoughts, recognize our emotions, and consider what we want to do next. For example, if someone says something upsetting, we might feel the urge to respond defensively. But a short pause can allow us to realize that our reaction is based on feeling hurt, rather than genuinely needing to defend ourselves. This simple act of pausing grants us the freedom to choose a response that aligns with our values rather than being driven by impulse. Reflecting on our emotions during the pause is what helps us to understand them better. Emotions can sometimes be unclear or mixed, and without taking time to think about them, we might misinterpret what we're truly feeling. For instance, someone might feel irritated during a stressful workday, but only realize upon reflection that this irritation is actually masking a sense of overwhelm or anxiety about a deadline. By pausing to reflect, we can recognize the true nature of our emotions and label them accurately. I am feeling overwhelmed instead of just I am annoyed. This awareness can be incredibly clarifying, allowing us to take actions that address the real cause of our emotions rather than just the surface feeling. One of the greatest benefits of pausing and reflecting is the control it gives us over our responses. Emotional reactions, especially strong ones, tend to hijack our rational mind, leading to reactions that can escalate conflicts or worsen situations. For example, a feeling of frustration with a partner might prompt a harsh response. But if we pause and recognize that our frustration comes from a place of needing support, we can communicate that need directly and constructively. This reflective approach minimizes misunderstandings and deepens our relationships, as we're able to express ourselves with clarity and kindness. Pausing also helps us differentiate between primary and secondary emotions. Primary emotions are the immediate instinctive feelings we have in response to a situation, such as sadness, fear, or joy. Secondary emotions, on the other hand, are reactions to those initial emotions. For instance, if we feel sad but don't acknowledge it, it might lead to frustration or even anger. Pausing and reflecting allows us to identify the primary emotion before it leads to more complex, compounded feelings. When we label the primary emotion accurately, like saying, I feel hurt, we prevent it from snowballing into unnecessary layers of frustration or resentment, which often complicates the situation further. In high-stakes or emotionally charged situations, pausing to reflect can also help us view things from a broader perspective. When we are in the heat of the moment, it's easy to get lost in immediate feelings and lose sight of the bigger picture. For instance, a stressful argument at work might feel all-consuming in the moment, but if we pause, we can remind ourselves of our long-term goals and values. Taking a step back in this way helps us see the importance or lack thereof of the situation and reminds us of our priorities. By shifting our focus away from the immediate emotion to the bigger picture, we're often able to gain a sense of calm and perspective that aids in resolving the issue effectively. Reflecting during the pause also allows us to check in with our body, as physical sensations often accompany emotions. When we feel anxious, we might notice a tightness in our chest or a quickened heartbeat. By pausing and tuning into these physical sensations, we can recognize how our body is reacting and use this awareness to calm ourselves. Techniques like deep breathing or progressive muscle relaxation can be very helpful in moments like these. As we take a moment to slow down, we're not only giving our minds a chance to label our emotions, but also soothing our bodies, making it easier to handle whatever challenges we are facing. Additionally, practicing the pause and reflection technique consistently helps us build emotional resilience over time. Each time we choose to pause and reflect, we reinforce the habit of mindful responding rather than reacting. Over time, this can strengthen our ability to face difficult emotions without becoming overwhelmed. Emotional resilience is about being able to experience the full range of emotions without being swept away by them, and pausing is a powerful tool to build this strength. When we learn to sit with our emotions, even uncomfortable ones, we become better equipped to handle future challenges without being derailed by strong reactions. Pausing and reflecting also contributes to self-compassion. When we take a moment to acknowledge our emotions without judgment, we're practicing kindness toward ourselves. Instead of criticizing ourselves for feeling a certain way, we allow ourselves to experience the emotion fully and accept it as a natural part of being human. This self-compassion not only improves our relationship with ourselves, but also makes us more compassionate toward others, as we understand that everyone experiences difficult emotions. In conclusion, the practice of pausing and reflecting is a simple yet profound technique that enables us to navigate our emotions with grace and clarity. It creates a space between the stimulus and our response, allowing us to engage in emotional labeling and understand our feelings more accurately. This process reduces impulsive reactions, promotes thoughtful responses, and fosters emotional resilience. By taking time to pause, we also deepen our self-awareness, improve our relationships, and practice self-compassion. Pausing may seem like a small act, but it has the potential to change the way we experience and respond to our emotions, leading to a life that is more aligned with our values, intentions, and goals. Through the consistent practice of pausing and reflecting, we gain control over our reactions and live in a way that's both mindful and meaningful. Choosing constructive responses is a crucial aspect of emotional intelligence, one that empowers us to handle situations thoughtfully and build positive interactions. Emotions are a natural and essential part of our lives. However, they can lead to destructive reactions when we respond impulsively, especially when emotions like anger, frustration, or sadness are involved. By labeling our emotions and choosing constructive responses, we can shift from merely reacting to consciously responding in a way that aligns with our values and goals. This deliberate approach strengthens our personal resilience, nurtures our relationships, and enables us to turn challenging moments into opportunities for growth. The first step in choosing constructive responses is identifying and labeling our emotions. When we face a difficult or emotionally charged situation, we might feel a surge of anger, frustration, disappointment, or sadness. Labeling these feelings accurately, such as "I am frustrated because I feel misunderstood," allows us to understand the underlying cause of our emotions instead of simply reacting to the surface feeling. Labeling gives us a clear understanding of what we're experiencing, providing insight that is vital in helping us decide how best to handle the situation. For example, labeling an emotion as frustration instead of anger might indicate a need to clarify or communicate expectations, while sadness could signal the need for comfort or self-care. Understanding these distinctions helps us respond in ways that address the root issue. Constructive responses are responses that seek resolution, build understanding, or move us closer to our goals. They are a conscious choice rather than an automatic reaction, meaning they require mindfulness and self-control. In challenging situations, we may feel an urge to react quickly or defensively. Pausing to reflect on the most constructive way to respond allows us to consider the potential outcomes of different reactions. For instance, if we're upset with a colleague over a miscommunication, a constructive response might involve calmly clarifying expectations rather than accusing them of negligence. This approach not only helps to resolve the issue, but also maintains a positive working relationship. When we choose responses based on clear intentions, we avoid escalating conflicts and open the door for productive dialogue. One of the key elements in constructive responding is empathy. Practicing empathy allows us to put ourselves in another person's shoes and consider their perspective, which can change the way we approach the situation. When we label our own emotions, we become more aware of how situations affect us, which can increase our ability to understand and validate the emotions of others. In an argument with a friend, for example, recognizing our own feelings of hurt or frustration can help us empathize with the fact that they, too, might be experiencing similar emotions. This empathy can lead us to choose words and actions that reduce tension rather than exacerbate it, fostering an atmosphere of mutual respect and understanding. Empathy is a cornerstone of constructive responses, as it helps us navigate conflicts in a way that preserves and strengthens relationships. A constructive response also involves focusing on solutions rather than dwelling on problems. When emotions are high, it's easy to fixate on what went wrong or to assign blame. However, a solution-oriented mindset shifts the focus toward resolving the issue and moving forward. For instance, if we're frustrated by a project delay at work, a constructive response might involve collaborating with colleagues to find ways to meet the deadline rather than complaining or assigning fault. Choosing to approach the situation with a mindset that seeks solutions not only helps address the problem effectively, but also sets a positive tone that others are likely to follow. This approach fosters an environment of collaboration and resilience, which can be especially valuable in professional and personal settings. Another critical aspect of constructive responses is self-regulation, which is our ability to manage and control our emotions even in challenging circumstances. Self-regulation helps us resist the urge to react impulsively, which can lead to damaging consequences, and instead respond in ways that align with our values. Self-regulation involves not only labeling emotions, but also understanding how these emotions influence our behavior and making a conscious choice to respond constructively. For example, in a situation where we feel disrespected, self-regulation might prompt us to express our feelings calmly rather than lashing out. By practicing self-regulation, we gain the power to shape our responses in ways that promote positive outcomes and avoid unnecessary conflicts. Communication skills also play an important role in choosing constructive responses. When we label our emotions accurately, it becomes easier to express them clearly to others. Clear communication can prevent misunderstandings and pave the way for more productive conversations. For instance, instead of saying, "You never listen to me," a more constructive response might be, "I feel frustrated when I don't feel heard." This subtle shift in language makes it clear that the issue lies in a feeling rather than an accusation, allowing the other person to respond without becoming defensive. Constructive communication emphasizes expressing our needs and feelings openly while remaining respectful of others' perspectives, leading to healthier and more effective interactions. Reflecting on our core values and long-term goals can also guide us toward constructive responses. In moments of emotional intensity, it's easy to lose sight of what truly matters to us. But taking a moment to remember our values such as kindness, integrity, or personal growth can help us make choices that align with our principles. For instance, if kindness is a core value, responding to a disagreement with empathy, rather than hostility, becomes a way to stay true to that value. Likewise, keeping long-term goals in mind can prevent us from sacrificing what's important for a fleeting emotional response. By prioritizing our values and goals, we ensure that our actions contribute to our overall well-being and personal growth. Developing the habit of choosing constructive responses is also crucial for building emotional resilience. Life is filled with situations that test our patience, understanding, and self-control. When we make a conscious effort to respond constructively, we build resilience by learning how to handle difficult situations with poise and purpose. Over time, these constructive choices become second nature, allowing us to face future challenges with confidence and calm. Emotional resilience is not just about withstanding stress, but also about adapting and responding in ways that strengthen our emotional well-being and relationships. By choosing constructive responses consistently, we become better equipped to handle life's ups and downs without losing our sense of balance. In conclusion, choosing constructive responses is a powerful way to navigate our emotions and interact meaningfully with others. It begins with labeling our emotions accurately, understanding what we're feeling and why, and then responding in a way that aligns with our values, prioritizes empathy, and focuses on solutions. By taking the time to reflect, communicate clearly, and act with intention, we can handle challenging situations in ways that support our personal growth and enhance our relationships. Constructive responses help us transform emotional reactions into purposeful actions, allowing us to engage with life in a way that is mindful, resilient, and true to ourselves. Through this practice, we cultivate a life that is not only emotionally balanced, but also deeply rewarding as we learn to handle challenges with wisdom and compassion. Building emotional resilience is an essential skill that helps us navigate life's challenges with strength, adaptability, and a positive outlook. Emotional resilience refers to our capacity to recover quickly from difficulties and maintain emotional balance in the face of stress, adversity, and change. While emotions are a natural and vital part of life, they can sometimes overwhelm us if not managed effectively. By learning to label and understand our emotions, we lay the groundwork for resilience, allowing us to face challenges more constructively. This ability to bounce back is not only crucial for personal well-being, but also plays a significant role in our relationships, productivity, and overall happiness. At the core of emotional resilience is self-awareness, which begins with the practice of emotional labeling. Emotional labeling involves identifying and naming the emotions we experience, such as "I feel frustrated," "I am anxious," or "I am excited." By labeling emotions, we gain clarity about what we are experiencing, and this clarity is vital for developing resilience. When we're able to identify specific emotions, we can address them directly, rather than being swept up in an indistinct wave of stress or confusion. For example, labeling an emotion as disappointment rather than simply feeling bad helps us understand the cause and impact of our feelings. By practicing this skill consistently, we build a habit of checking in with ourselves, which is essential in strengthening our emotional resilience. One of the key reasons labeling emotions fosters resilience is that it gives us a sense of control. Emotions often arise quickly, influenced by external events or internal thoughts, and can feel overwhelming if we don't fully understand them. Labeling helps us move from feeling out of control to feeling empowered by clearly identifying what we're experiencing. In this way, we're less likely to be blindsided by emotions and more able to respond thoughtfully rather than react impulsively. For instance, if a sudden project at work makes us feel overwhelmed, labeling that emotion as stress, rather than just frustration, allows us to seek solutions such as breaking down tasks or seeking support that directly address the stress, rather than escalating into a full-blown reaction. This sense of control is fundamental to resilience, as it reminds us that even in difficult situations, we have the capacity to manage our emotional responses. Labeling emotions also strengthens resilience by reducing emotional intensity. Studies have shown that when we label our emotions, it activates the brain's prefrontal cortex, the area responsible for reasoning and problem solving. This reduces the activation in the amygdala, the part of the brain that triggers strong emotional responses like fear and anger. In practice, this means that when we name our emotions, we create a psychological pause that allows us to calm down and approach the situation with greater clarity. Imagine a situation where you're angry after receiving negative feedback. Labeling this feeling as anger or embarrassment allows you to engage your rational mind and reflect on how to improve rather than reacting defensively or holding on to resentment. This process helps to de-escalate strong emotions, making it easier to cope and increasing our resilience. Another way that labeling builds resilience is by helping us identify patterns in our emotional responses. When we make a habit of labeling our emotions, we can start to recognize recurring emotional patterns in specific situations. For instance, if we notice a pattern of feeling anxious before presentations, we can prepare ourselves mentally and physically to handle those feelings rather than letting anxiety control us each time. This awareness of patterns allows us to proactively address triggers and develop coping strategies, turning potential stressors into manageable challenges. Over time, this pattern recognition helps us feel more equipped to handle a range of situations, reinforcing our emotional resilience. Emotional labeling also fosters resilience by promoting self-compassion. When we label our emotions, we're engaging in a form of self-acceptance, acknowledging that it's okay to feel a certain way. This act of recognizing and naming our emotions without judgment builds a positive relationship with ourselves, where we view emotions as natural rather than weaknesses. For example, if we feel sadness after a setback, labeling it as such allows us to acknowledge and process the emotion rather than ignoring it or feeling ashamed. This self-compassion is essential for resilience, as it helps us treat ourselves with kindness during difficult times rather than succumbing to self-criticism. Through self-compassion, we build the strength to navigate challenges without being overly hard on ourselves, which supports our long-term emotional health. Building resilience through emotional labeling also enhances our ability to adapt. Life is full of change, and adapting to new circumstances is a major part of resilience. Labeling emotions helps us become more flexible in our approach, as we can recognize and address each emotion as it arises rather than feeling overwhelmed by constant shifts. For example, moving to a new city might bring up multiple emotions: excitement, fear, sadness, which can feel confusing if not identified. By labeling each emotion, we can acknowledge and address them individually, helping us adapt to the change with greater ease. This adaptability is a cornerstone of resilience, as it enables us to navigate life's inevitable ups and downs with a clear and balanced mindset. Emotional labeling further supports resilience by enhancing our relationships. When we're resilient, we're better able to communicate and connect with others, even during challenging times. By labeling our own emotions, we can express them more effectively to others, reducing the chances of misunderstandings or conflicts. For example, if we're feeling stressed due to work, we can communicate this to a partner or friend rather than unintentionally taking out our frustration on them. This open communication strengthens relationships, providing us with a support system that is essential for resilience. Knowing we can rely on loved ones during tough times boosts our ability to face difficulties with confidence and calm. Consistent practice of emotional labeling is one of the best ways to make resilience a natural part of our response to challenges. Each time we label and understand an emotion, we're training our mind to approach life with a thoughtful, calm attitude. Over time, this practice helps us build an inner reserve of strength, enabling us to respond constructively to stressors, setbacks, and adversity. Emotional resilience doesn't mean avoiding negative emotions. Rather, it's about learning how to process them in a healthy way. This resilience leads to personal growth, as we become more confident in our ability to handle whatever comes our way. In conclusion, building emotional resilience through the practice of labeling is a powerful strategy for managing life's inevitable challenges. By identifying and naming our emotions, we gain control, clarity, and a greater sense of self-awareness, allowing us to handle stressors with calm and adaptability. Emotional labeling helps us reduce emotional intensity, recognize patterns, practice self-compassion, and communicate effectively with others, all of which are essential components of resilience. This habit strengthens our ability to face adversity and bounce back, contributing to a balanced, fulfilling life. Through emotional resilience, we can navigate both the highs and lows with grace, maintaining inner stability while fostering growth and positive relationships. As we continue to label and understand our emotions, we build a foundation of resilience that supports us in leading a life that is both emotionally rich and mentally strong.